Hello everyone, Darkside Phil here, and welcome to another edition of the Hateful Truth video game review series, where I give you maximum truth and minimum bullshit when it comes to today's latest video game releases. And the game we're going to talk about today is quite surprising for different reasons, alright? First of all, a lot of people, seems again the reviews for this game, when you look at the mainstream media, are kind of split. There's this weird group of people. Well, it's weird because there's one group of people who actually have been giving this game kind of mediocre reviews, citing some pretty interesting facts that, quite honestly, the majority of people who've played the game are agreeing with. There's another group of people who've been reviewing the game and like lauding it, praising it, saying it's amazing, and they knocked it out of the park. And it's odd to be this kind of person. I know I'm not a mainstream reviewer, to play the game and to try to see from different perspectives and understand how people could be reviewing it one way or the other, alright? I have to give you a review that's honest and from my perspective. And I really feel that this game, let me put it to you this way, if this game had been the first in the series, I think people would have given it a lot of credit. I think people would have praised the hell out of the game. It may have been a Game of the Year contender. The problem comes in the fact that the game is not. It's the third game in the series, and it's the first game of this series developed by a different studio. So, without further ado, let's get to it. We are talking about Batman Arkham Origins. Now, as you see, I played the game on the Xbox 360. However, the reports that I'm going to be talking about during the course of the review are for all platforms, including Xbox 360, PS3, and PC. People have all been kind of saying the same thing about this game. Okay? So, Batman Arkham Origins, the first game in the Arkham series, is not developed by Rocksteady. Rocksteady developed Batman Arkham Asylum and then subsequently Batman Arkham City. This is the third one in the series. And this is actually developed by a studio called Splash Damage and also by WB Games Montreal. Alright? It's their first major entry, really. And people were wondering, gee, I wonder how this game's going to be. Watching gameplay trailers and such, the game looked good. And the premise of the game sounded great. The premise of the game is that it's basically the beginning of Batman. He's just starting to emerge in Gotham and doing his crime fighting and do-gooding. Commissioner Gordon isn't Commissioner Gordon yet, and he doesn't even know who Batman is, so he doesn't know whether or not he can trust him. And the plot, the main plot, now this is spoiler-free, however, we will bring up a plot point later that is a spoiler, but I'll warn you ahead of time, so don't worry about it. The plot is supposed to be that the Black Mask is kind of like the crime kingpin of Gotham. He's pissed off that this Batman is now coming in on his territory. So he's hired 8 assassins to come into Gotham and assassinate Batman within 24 hours of Christmas. If they do, they get $50 million. Okay? Pretty interesting premise. It's almost like, you ever saw the movie Get Shorty? Where it's like everyone needs to get this one guy and kill him within a certain amount of time, and you're like, wow, this is so different from the premises of the last 2 games. This might be really good. And also the focus. It seems like the focus is going to be on Black Mask and all these assassins that were hired to kill Batman. Very neat, right? Alright, so now let's actually talk about the game itself. Also important to note, this is the very first Batman Arkham game to have multiplayer, which I will talk about a little bit, okay? Alright, so, Batman Arkham Origins. I'm going to put it to you very simply, because there's really not a lot that needs to be said about the gameplay of Batman Arkham Origins, because I'm going to put it this way. If you've played Batman Arkham Asylum, if you've played Batman Arkham City, or if you've watched playthroughs of either of those games, you know exactly what to expect from Batman Arkham Origins. The reason being, they literally contacted Rocksteady. Rocksteady must have donated the code, because the combat, the actual way that you move through this open world city, all of that is almost identical to Batman Arkham City with very, very few differences. It almost seems like they didn't want to try to take a creative risk because they knew that the past 2 games had done well sales-wise and critical acclaim and everything in the review scene. So they were like, why risk it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Just do more of the same. Now, there were a couple things that they did change. The biggest primary thing that they did change is the investigations. Now, as you know, Batman, one of his taglines, one of his nicknames is the world's greatest detective. And in Batman Arkham Asylum as well as Arkham City, you could use what was called detective mode scanning to look for evidence around crime scenes, figure out what happened, and then go after the culprit. Okay? Sometimes this really due to just a normal guy, sometimes it's really due to a supervillain. It was a neat mechanic. Well, in Batman Arkham Origins, Batman does this several times. He'll stumble upon a crime scene, he starts analyzing evidence. But you'll immediately notice how it's very different. Alright? instead of like following a trail, I remember in previous games he was following these pheromones that he found to try to find where the culprit had gone, or maybe investigating, looking for incriminating claw marks or something to tell who the culprit was and then going after them. In this game, he basically copies the TV show CSI. And I hate to say that, but it is blatantly apparent that whoever on Splash Damage worked on the investigation sequences is a huge fan of the television show CSI, because he uses the exact same sequences to do the investigations here. What it is, Batman will say, oh, I found a blood splatter here, and oh, over here you found the point of origin of, say, where the bullet was. So now we're going to rewind time to the point of the body is here, and the body all of a sudden gets up, is still in motion, walks all the way to the window where the bullet came in and shot him, and then you're able to play back what happened with the crime from start to finish, looking for points where you might find additional evidence. It's exactly what they do on CSI. So if you've watched that show, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Those weird sequences where it's slow-mo and they go through time, that's exactly what they do in this game, and it really seems like a knockoff. It seems like, like I said, the guy was a fan, maybe he was trying to do an homage to CSI, but it's so out of place because there was nothing. Again, you're making a game where if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why change the investigation sequences, which lots of people liked about the previous two Batman games? Very weird, alright? But outside of that, everything is identical. The combat, like I said, the same kind. You're going to do a couple strikes, build up a combo. Oh, you'll have an opportunity to counter something in the middle. Later on, when you unlock different abilities, you'll be able to use the grappling hook. You'll be able to throw the batarangs at the guys. Later on, you actually get these electric gloves that you can use. That's the one new element. Electric gloves will basically double your damage and knock out people more quickly. But it's the same. And of course, there's going to be big, tougher enemies who you have to stun first before you can hit them. It's the same combat. They didn't change anything. It was really like, wow, I can't believe I'm playing the same game again, really. Same thing with the travel. No additional things added to the travel, except in this game they added fast travel if you unlock enough things without a certain within a certain part of Gotham City. And I think it's what it is, these little broadcasting things, little scanners. Remember in previous Arkham games it was security cameras? Now it's like these little scanners. If you break all the scanners, you can fast travel to one portion of Arkham City. I'm sorry, Gotham City. Okay? However, outside of that, like, it's just, you really do feel like you're playing a game that was copy and pasted from the previous two games from Rocksteady, but there's an appalling problem with that, alright? The problem is, the game just doesn't hold up. In fact, it has lots of problems. So let's explain some of these problems. First of all, alright, bugs. Insane amount of game bugs. I'm not joking. I'm not like trying to just say, oh, I had 2 bugs, the game's awful. No. My playthrough, as I was playing this game, it crashed no less than 10 times. Meaning, you're just playing the game, locks up, now you have to completely restart, and you have to be hope and wish that you were lucky enough that it saved at a checkpoint really close to where you were, so you don't have to replay a lot of gameplay, alright? There were some missions, it crashed 2 or 3 times while I was just on the way to the one mission, and I had to keep constantly restarting my console, and I would say, uh-oh, maybe it's an Xbox 360 issue, except that everyone who's been playing this game is reporting the same kind of stuff. I mean, hell, Angry Joe made a whole rant video about it, and he's playing the game on PC. So it's a common problem with the game. The game screams of being unpolished. If you remember when you played Arkham Asylum and Arkham City, the frame rate was one of the awesome things about the game. It never dipped. You could be in free-flowing combat with 12, 20 dudes. You could be having giant boss fights with one of these Arkham villains, or you could be gliding across the city with your cape at high altitude and seeing all the things in the draw distance and everything loading in. It never lost any frames of animation. Arkham Origins constantly loses frames of animation. And the most frustrating thing is when you're in the middle of a fight and all of a sudden the game starts chopping up and now you're supposed to be able to reverse a bunch of combat. You know what I mean? How am I going to reverse when half the frames of animation to warn me it was time to press the button to reverse, I never got to see them because they all dropped, and it's insanely frustrating in that regard. So constant game crashing, game bugs. Bugs where characters stuck to the walls, bugs where things just didn't load properly, bugs where the game would just freeze, and low frame rate throughout the game. I'm not saying this is like few and far between. I'm talking this will happen a lot to you, and it's like, what happened to this game? Another complaint I have about the game, alright? The boss fights. Most of them are different, so they're not the same, alright? However, they're very much trial and error, similar to, say, let me put it to you this way, Mega Man. Remember in Mega Man, you always have 8 robot masters, And when you first fight that robot master, you have no idea what to do because you don't know what to expect, what their pattern is going to be, what their weakness is. But after you fight them a few times, you learn their patterns. Perhaps you've learned their weakness. You can use that to your advantage and you can beat them. That's exactly what the boss fights of Batman Arkham Origins are like. When you first fight Deathstroke, you don't know what to expect. He's got multiple phases of combat. So first he's fighting with a stick, then he's fighting with a sword, then he starts using guns, and so everything is different. Now most of the sequences are quick time, either reversals or whatever, but then sometimes you need to know when to attack, sometimes you need to know when to do a certain button combination to hit like a heavy finisher attack, and it's frustrating if you don't know what you're supposed to do. And then when you finally figure it out, you're like, ah, okay, and then you'll immediately just, go right through it and win. So it's a little bit of trial and error. In 2013, it's going to be very dividing whether or not people like that or not. Some people don't like that. Some people like it when the game explains to you how to do something so you can actually succeed at it rather than you just using trial and error, trial and error, trial and error to try and finally figure out how to get past certain bosses. Alright? Some things I like about the game. Don't get me wrong, this isn't a huge negative review. The amount of gameplay, alright? You will get probably 10 to 12 hours if you just coast through the story, but there are side missions where you go after some of these assassins who've basically been sent to kill you. And there's a wide variety. You've got Mad Hatter with a side plot where you get drugged and you basically see Wonderland, which is pretty cool. You've got Deadshot the Assassin where you do some investigation work before you actually find out it was him who did something, and then you go after him and you have to do this really cool sneaking around kind of gameplay to take him out. And by the way, I do want to mention, the stealth gameplay from the past two Arkham games is very much present in this game. In fact, it hasn't really changed at all. It's almost identical. It's just that it's too identical to the point where it doesn't seem like they really put much effort into improving anything in the game. Alright? So you'll have these side content with some of these assassins. There's also the same collection missions are in the game. Oh, go find 20 drug caches. Go find 20, all the Riddler clues. And that's the other thing. The Riddler makes his appearance, but he doesn't call himself the Riddler anymore. He's just called Enigma because Batman doesn't know who he is. The Riddler clues return, but they're nowhere near as ingenuous or as interesting as they were in the previous Arkham games. If you remember, the previous Arkham games, you'd be looking around, oh, maybe you'd see this cool-looking question mark, and you'd use that to line it up, and there'd be a riddle you need to solve, or maybe you'd see the green lights flashing, and you had to do some kind of a time sequence, maybe throw a Batarang, in order to unlock one of the Riddler trophies. In this game, the Riddler trophies still exist. They're not called trophies. I think they're like Riddler Enigma case files or something like that. But the puzzles are far less inspired. It's like, step on a platform, there's going to be 2 green lights blinking. Hit one with a Batarang, hit another one with a Batarang. Congratulations, you got your Riddler trophy. And it's like, it feels so like dialed in. Like, again, you can tell, it's blatantly apparent that Rocksteady didn't make this game. Okay? So the things I do like, by the way. The music is great, the voice acting's great. For the things that they did copy and paste from the Rocksteady games, like I said, the combat, those things, the stealth gameplay, it's all there, it's great, the open world is great, and there's a lot of content in the game, alright? But I have a gripe with Batman Arkham Origins, and I have to warn everyone, I'm going to do it right now. Spoiler alert, if you have not played the game and you aren't aware of the plot of Batman Arkham Origins, I'm just going to say this before I spoil, because I am going to spoil in the review, and what you can do right now if you're watching, and you see me holding this, when I pick it up again, that's when you can start watching again. So you can fast forward to you see me holding the sign again, okay? So the first thing I want to say before I spoil is it's a bait and switch. The plot of Batman Arkham Origins that I told you about earlier is not the real plot of the game. That's all I'm going to say. Now, spoiler alert, I am going to elaborate on that, so if you don't want to be spoiled, move on until I lift the sign again, okay? As I said earlier, the plot of Batman Arkham Origins is supposed to be, according to the trailers and all the information we were given, about Black Mask, who's this criminal kingpin in Gotham City, and how he hired 8 assassins to kill Batman, and there's a bounty on his head. That's what the game's supposed to be about. That's not what the game's about. They completely lied in all of the PR and advertisement for this game to make you think that it was far different than what it really is. Guess what the main plot line of Batman Arkham Origins is? Now, I just want you to think back at the past 2 games. I want you to think of every fucking cliche around Batman. Gee, I wonder what the plot of Batman Arkham Origins is. The plot, here it is, spoiler alert, the fucking Joker. Yeah, the Joker is the main character of the game for the 3rd time. 3 games in a row, the Joker is the main antagonist. You find out that the Joker was behind everything. I won't spoil too much. That's all I'm going to say. It's the Joker. And the whole game, most of the game, you're going after the Joker. And I'm fucking tired of it. You know what? I'm going to say it right now. It's a cop-out. It's a way for people to not have any kind of originality and write anything interesting. And I'm tired of it. Yes, the Joker is the most iconic Batman villain. In fact, he's one of the most iconic villains of all time. He's a unique character. He's a colorful character. He can be funny, but he can be deadly. I understand the appeal, why people like him, and why game makers keep going to him. But enough is fucking enough. Let me tell you, there's like 400 Batman villains, all of which you could have drawn upon as the focus of this game, and they're just not capable of fucking doing it. It's like we want to make sure the game sells, gotta go back to the Joker. And enough, I'm done. I feel cheated out of my $60. I do. Because I was told this was a game that was about Black Mask and 8 assassins. It's about the motherfucking Joker. And I'm pissed at it. I am tired of the Joker. I love the Joker, but I've had enough of the Joker. I got Joker up my fucking ass. I don't need Joker coming out of my ears, okay? Alright, so, very disappointing that they promised us a one plot and then the game goes in a completely different direction during the course of the game. Pisses me off, and that's a major detriment, alright? So now, that's the end of the spoilers. It's over. We're done with the spoilers. You can come back now to the video if you want. No more spoilers, okay? Alright, so that's my general feelings about the game, alright? Now, let me tell you about this multiplayer, because I don't even know how to categorize it. Let me explain. First of all, right now the multiplayer only has one mode. I think it's called Invisible Crusader, Invisible Assassin. It's called Invisible something, alright? The way it goes is this. It's 8 players. You need to have a lobby full of 8 players. If the lobby doesn't have 8 players, it won't even start, alright? And what happens is only 4 maps. For one mode, only 4 maps. 3 people are on the Joker's gang, 3 people are on Bane's gang, and then there's 2 people that randomly get picked to be Batman and Robin. If you're on either of the gangs, the game turns into a generic third-person shooter. The best comparison here would be if anyone saw the game Brink last year, because guess what? The people who developed Brink developed the multiplayer for this game, so it makes sense, alright? So you're going to have custom loadouts, you're going to have experience points for victories, you get to upgrade your weapons, upgrade your appearance and such, okay? And you get to play the game. It's a third-person shooter. You can take cover. The point is to capture certain locations on the map, alright? But at the same time, the other point is to kill the opponents, because the more opponents you kill, they have a limited amount of respawns. When the respawns run out, that's it. If they run out of respawns, they're done. They lose, okay? And the point is obviously to rack up the most points by holding areas of the map and also killing all of your opponents. But if you're chosen to be Batman and Robin, the game completely changes. You now become Batman and Robin, and you have the same abilities that you had in the campaign of Batman Arkham Origins. So you're able to swing around on the rafters, you can see, look around, you can see people through walls, you can actually do stealth kills through vents and gratings and through windows, you can blow up walls, you can use explosive batarangs, all that stuff's in there, okay? So it's basically like playing as Batman or Robin, only with other people who are intelligent humans that you need to hunt. And it's fun as hell when you get selected to be Batman or Robin. The problem is it's random. You don't know if or when you'll ever be selected as Batman or Robin. So the gameplay is very basic if you're playing the third-person shooter. It's actually quite fun if you get selected to be Batman or Robin. There's a problem though. The matchmaking is garbage and it's horribly bugged. Meaning, like I said, if you can't find 8 people, you can't even start the game. A lot of the times what happens is the game says, oh, connection lost, but then it'll keep looking for people. It says connection lost, you can never back out. You're basically locked on this screen while the thing keeps searching for people, and you're just infinitely stuck. You can't even get out. You have to go back to the dashboard to back out of the whole game because the whole thing locks up. This happened to me 2 to 3 times in like the hour and a half that I played the game and was attempting to do multiplayer. Now, if you have friends who you can just invite to a private game, it works a hell of a lot better, alright? But the bottom line is this. It's only one game mode, it's only 4 maps. And it's like, this was developed independently from the game? Really? Because why is it so limited? Why is there only one game mode and 4 maps, and this is multiplayer of this game? It's very weird, and as I said, the gameplay is so generic if you're one of the gangs, it's boring. It's interesting when you finally, it's like you're just going to be waiting and biding your time. When do I get to be Batman or Robin? When do I get picked? And then when you do, you're like, yeah, now I can use my grappling hook, and I can throw boot batarangs, I can drop in, do inverted takedowns, pop out of the grating, and surprise people, and that stuff's fun, but everything else kind of sucks. So really, the multiplayer of the game has nothing to do with the normal game. It's separate, first of all, it's a whole separate disc on the Xbox 360, and it's like, it doesn't really, does it add maybe a little bit of replayability, but is that oh man, So, alright, I heard the campaign's not so good, but is it alright if I run out because it has multiplayer? No, no one's going to do that. Especially during this hardcore gaming season, no one's going to run out to buy it because this game has multiplayer. You know what I mean? So the bottom line is this. Batman Arkham Origins is an oddity. Because here's what I really feel. I said this at the beginning of the review. I feel if this had been the first game in the Arkham series, people would have loved it. They would have forgiven that the frame rate chops up. They would have forgiven that maybe the game has a lot of bugs and crashes. Because they would have said, oh, it's an open world game. We'll forgive it. Oh, you know, this is the first time they're attempting to have this many enemies on the screen. We'll forgive it. The problem is you've got 2 other entries in the series previous to this one that didn't have those problems. So we know that it's capable of doing it. Why? If they copied all the code from Rocksteady, why didn't they go to Rocksteady when they were having all these performance issues and ask them, how did you get around them? Because it's obvious Rocksteady knew how to, but these guys didn't. And it's a major detriment to the game. It's, again, you feel like you want to go back and play a new version of those old games, but this really isn't it. This feels like a pale clone of those previous games with a plot that's disappointing and a cop-out, and it infuriates me that I spent $60 and it was a bait and switch, and an online gameplay that's kind of unless you get to play as Batman or Robin, in which case it's great, but that's few and far between, and the matchmaking doesn't work. So I hate to say it, Batman, but Batman didn't do so good this time. And I really hope that Rocksteady is working on another game. The rumors are that they are working actually on another Batman game, because this one was so disappointing. I honestly don't want to play another game from these people. I think they had their chance. They even had all the code done for them already from Rocksteady that they just lifted, and they couldn't even make a game without constant game crashes and performance issues. It's a joke at this point. So, I'm sorry, Batman Arkham Origins, it has a lot of content, okay? And if you're a Batman fan, you will probably like it regardless of all the issues. But already having 2 games in the series that are much better, this game really doesn't hold up that much, alright? And the online play is kind of unless you randomly get to be Batman and Robin, which is few and far between. There's networking issues. All things considered, I'm going to give Batman Arkham Origins a 6.5 out of 10. I think it's better than average, but nowhere near as good as the previous 2 Arkham entries. And I'm hoping, please, WB Games, let Rocksteady work on another one, because that was a series that was great. This is like how the series dies. If you do something like this and you never give it back to the masters, no one's going to trust in the series anymore, and that's a shame. It's not that good of a game. It's alright. It's better than average, but it's definitely nowhere near great with all the issues I had during my playthrough. It's good, it's fun for one outing, but I don't think... most people, if you're interested, my suggestion, wait 2 months. It'll be for like 20 bucks everywhere, and you'll be able to buy it at a discounted rate and have fun then. By the way, the game's about Christmas anyway, so buy it for Christmas at a discounted rate, and there you go. Alright, so that's it for the Hateful Truth on Batman Arkham Origins. I hope that you found it useful and informative. I hope that you felt I give you maximum truth and minimal bullshit regarding this game. I will see you next time for the next Hateful Truth game review. Peace out. See you later.